All right, folks, let's go ahead and get started.
Thank you for
Thank you for coming, and I think we can pretty much get right into it. Detective King, if you just want to give us your standard update, and we can talk about Richmond Park later, but if you want to come chat about that.
Weird being on camera now. Detective King with Salt Lake Police with the Community Intelligence Unit. So far, again, just kind of just trends and stuff is stuff I've already kind of expressed and talked about, just with just lots of thefts, lots of car thefts. Again, just a reminder: don't leave anything in cars that can be seen. Lock cars. I've had people for some reason leave titles to cars in their glove box, leave spare keys to their cars in their glove box. Sometimes people just grab what they can. Anything like that that's a personal, like with the titles and that, leave that at your house. That's not used illegally for them to try to obtain the vehicle. Biggest thing, like I think I might have even said it before, is if you're out shopping at some of the stores and you're going to go from one place to another, shop, put it directly in your trunk, and then go to the other store to shop. Don't put it in your car, drive to the other place, and then get out and put it in your trunk, because people are watching that kind of stuff. And specifically more around Christmas time and stuff like that, but that is a huge issue. Yeah, and then again, just there's a lot of people just out wandering, roaming around, seeing what's there. I don't like leaving my garage doors open if I'm not in the front yard, if I'm not there watching. It's unfortunate that that's a society we're in. I'd like to just be able to leave stuff laying around and know it's there, but I guess I get paranoid and I take that stuff and I leave it locked up so I know exactly where it is. I know who's walking around. And talking with some of you, it sounds like you're good. You know who's in the neighborhood, you know who's not supposed to be there. Don't hesitate to give us a call if you got suspicious people wandering around, just acting different. They don't belong there, so we can come and talk to them and figure out what's going on. Do you guys have any questions for me? I know, so we're going to talk about Richmond Park later?
Yeah, we'll talk about it a little later.
Okay, so we got other issues with some of the parks and transients we'll talk about. If you guys do have any questions, my desk number is 801-799-3624. That'll go straight to my cell phone. If I don't answer, leave a message, I will call you back. Or you can email me, ciudistrict4@slcgov.com. You can also find that on the Salt Lake Police website. So, talk about that later.
Thank you. All right, Representative, any updates from the legislature? And then if any of you in the back have questions, just speak up a little more so than usual. We're doing a Facebook Live broadcast. It's just experimental at this point.
Sounds great. What a wonderful idea for folks that can't make it. Anyway, State Representative Rebecca Chavez-Houck. I represent House District 24, and that is everything north of 3rd South. If you live south of 3rd South, you will be living in Representative Angela Romero's district. Anybody a little bit more due east is in Joel Briscoe's district. We all share Central City. Really, right now, we are just jumping into the last few months of our interim season at the legislature, which is where we meet once a month and study issues that we want to possibly look at as possible legislation for the upcoming general session in January. Also getting ready to work on budgets. I will tell you probably one of the things that I am focused on more so than anything in terms of either budget or support, this last session was appropriate and cohesive data collection regarding homeless services, hoping to get a report on that in October from the various agencies that with whom the various homeless individuals intersect. And so maybe in November I'll have a little bit more information on that. And really that's primarily what I'm working on making my election day voter registration pilot project a permanent law here in Utah. Right now it's just a pilot project, so if you live in Salt Lake County, Weber County, Davis County, Cache County, San Pete, Kane, Millard, and there's one more, San Juan, individuals there can register and vote on the same day. But it was a 3-year pilot project. We're trying it for the last time of presidential year, and then I'm going to go back up on the hill and see if we can make that permanent. So those are the 2 main bills that I'm working on. And other than that, I'm really actually just open for questions if people have any questions or concerns. Yes, Cynthia?
Do you have information, Rebecca, on how many people have taken advantage of same-day voter registration in the previous 2 years?
So I can do it by election. I know last year it was somewhere around 2,000 folks. It's not a lot, but for those folks that show up on election day, and in many cases, the people that take advantage of this have already thought they were registered.
Right.
This often helps, for example, a student that filled out a voter registration form at a voter registration booth at their college, shows up on election day, thinks they're on the rolls, and finds out that they're not, and they absolutely have no option, no fail-safe there. So somewhere around, I know that Salt Lake County was around 1,800, so I'll have to kind of take a look and see what those numbers are. I can shoot that to you. I'll get that information to you and send it to you. Not a lot of folks, but for those folks that participate in it, it makes a difference. One age group that was really telling, that was kind of interesting for Salt Lake County, the very first year that we did it, first primary season, were seniors over 75. And I think what you've got there is people that have moved. Maybe they have downsized, they have moved from a larger home to a second home, forgot to re-register in their new precinct, show up on election day and realize that they haven't taken care of that. So this is an opportunity for everyone, and I'd just like to share that with everyone. So if you know of someone that is voting on election day and they find that they weren't on the rolls, or they forgot to re-register because they moved, because we have a lot of mobility in our district in terms of people moving from one place to another, this is something that they can take advantage of. So, anything else? Great, super. I keep forgetting to do this, but this time I remembered. I'm gonna leave you some of my business cards and the card that has the legislative website on it that tells you a little bit of some of the issues that we're studying over the interim, our agendas for the various interim committee meetings. Again, we meet the 3rd Wednesday of every month, and so if you want to tune in, because we do have live streaming of our committee meetings during interim day, and I know a lot of my constituents do like to tune in, you're welcome to do that, or since we live in such close proximity to our Capitol building, you are always welcome to come up then. All right, thank you.
Thank you. I don't see Councilman Kitchen, so Detective, if you want to get back in the hot seat and we can chat about Richmond Park. Oh, and sorry, actually, let's have our fire go first. I completely forgot. If you guys want to come up and give us an update.
Well, first of all, I'll introduce myself. I'm Deputy Chief Karl Lieb. I work right here in this building. So your local fire crew is on a call, and they continue to run regular calls here in your district, and this is a fairly busy area for us, as you're aware. But I don't have any data update for you, given the crew has the updates, but I certainly can answer any questions you might have from your community. Sir?
Is there a fire truck downtown? I keep hearing fire trucks all night long.
Well, downtown is the core of the city. You're going to hear fire engines, fire trucks any given night. I am not aware of an arson issue right now. Yes, sir.
The Sizzler building that went up in flames, did they find an arson or the cause of it?
I think that building is still under investigation. Is that where we are with that? Yeah, so we haven't determined the cause yet of that.
Do you suspect an arson?
We will do a thorough investigation of all such fires like that,
Okay.
so it's a possibility.
Okay.
Any other questions for fire? Yes, sir.
How many medical responses have you had on the Rio Grande area per month, and also versus Palmer Court?
Well, I don't have the exact data with me, but suffice it to say that the numbers continue to climb gradually.
They're climbing fast?
Yeah, well, not fast. They just continue to rise, particularly for the Rio Grande area.
Okay.
Palmer Court as well. I would say I think our run volume in Palmer Court is also on the rise.
I was told they were number 2 on medical response still.
Yes.
Okay, but can you send that information?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Do we have?
I'll give you
me your contact. I'll get you the data. Any others? Yes, ma'am.
Compliments to the fire department, saved my house. 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago tonight.
3 weeks ago?
3 weeks ago tonight, the house next door to me went up with 60, 70 foot flames. I saw equipment fighting the fire that I did not know Salt Lake City owned. I think it was 3 alarms. There were fire trucks coming from all over.
What street did you live on?
10 piece.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was an incredible fire. They made the decision to stop it at the house that was already in flames, and it protected everybody's homes around it. There's no damage to my roof. The plants growing on the southwest corner of my house are cooked. That's how close it came. So kudos to those guys. And I told the guys at the station on 2nd South that I will be at every budget hearing until I die. Every budget hearing. Get them whatever they want.
We appreciate that. I'll pass that on to the crews that were involved in that fire.
I already went by with my dog and walked up and talked to him.
Well, they appreciate it. They
Yeah.
appreciate that.
It was just, I mean, there is no feeling so helpless as watching the flames.
Impinge on your building.
Yeah.
It's the worst day of people's lives.
Yeah,
So we realize that.
yeah,
So
so, thanks, I was grateful for the skilled human resources and all of that equipment. It was amazing to see how much Salt Lake City could deploy.
thank you for those kind words.
Yeah,
We appreciate it.
heartfelt.
Any other questions for fire department? We'll get you your information, sir. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, Detective, I promise this one's yours. Detective King, if you'd like to come on up. So just to give you folks some background here, we wanted to talk primarily about Richmond Park on 600 South and 440 East. There's been a lot of concerns about homeless encampments there, and particularly the state they're leaving the park in. So, Detective, you want to go ahead?
Okay, so Richmond Park. I have been getting some emails from people saying that they're having an issue with transients camping overnight, leaving drug paraphernalia, urinating, defecating, and other stuff. A lot of neighbors have been saying that they've been having to clean up some of this stuff. This is stuff that if you see this stuff, give us a call so we can help get it cleaned up. Sometimes with the human waste can cause issues that I don't want to cause on you guys, but it is something that we are definitely looking at. It is a problem that we're having across the entire city. I think just about every single park, we're getting some type of complaint of some type with transients. I had our statistic people pull the calls to the park, and they said within the last year they've only had four complaints at that park. I don't know, and I don't know if what's going on, if that was dispatch got the complaint taker's address, and then they said it's the park over here, or if they were actually using that park. I know that we have an East Side Bike Squad that I've been talking to, that they said that they've been going through trying to talk with the people there, talk with the transients. There's been a couple mornings. I usually come in about 6. There's a couple mornings where I've come in early, trying to swing through to try to see if I can find anybody there at the park too, to try to help out with that. But we understand that there is an issue going on here, and so that is one of the things. If you see stuff going on, let us know. I believe the park does open at 6 a.m., and so that's one of the hard things, is trying to accommodate everybody using the park, because it's a public park. But there are certain curfew hours where people are not allowed to be there. And so sometimes if you see people there, we definitely would like a call so that our patrol guys can go through, or the bikes, if they're on, they can go and take care of that. But it is something we're aware of. One of the things I did do is I did notice that I didn't see any signs there specifically stating hours. And so trying to help out, I have talked with the Parks Department and said, we're having issues at some of these parks. It might help if you put up signs that post the hours for the parks, and post the specific ordinances, like the no camping and other stuff. Hopefully that'll help, but just trying to see what we can do to try to curb this, because we do know it's an issue, and it's a citywide thing. So hopefully we can get going with that. We're going to get this, hopefully, I haven't been by yet to see if Parks has been able to put that up. They said it's probably going to take a couple weeks to get those up, but hopefully they'll get the signs up, stating the hours, stating the specific ordinances for the camping and all that other stuff. What questions do you guys have? Yeah.
What is the process after y'all are called out to the park? So I guess my question is like, you can kick people out of the park, but that doesn't help them to have a home the next night.
Mm-hmm.
What are the resources given to the individuals to kind of like break the cycle? Are they given like caseworkers? Is it a different officer every time? Like, what is that like?
So when we get called, when you call dispatch, sometimes, so like Salt Lake's broken up into like little beats. And so that specific area has an officer that's assigned to that specific spot. So if he can take it, so he gets to know the area, but sometimes he'll get sent to other stuff. So sometimes you'll get officers that just kind of rotate in and out of there.
Okay.
As far as resources, there are a lot of resources down at the shelter. When I've talked to people, we have what we call a host program. I can't remember what it stands for, but they do have I'm trying to think of what her title is. Social worker. So they do have social workers that have been hired to help work with them, and they try to help people to get those resources that they need. A lot of times the reason they're going out is because they don't like being down at that shelter or being in that environment.
Yeah, of course.
And so it's there, and I know that when I go out, I've tried to express that to people that there are resources, but whether or not they follow up through and actually go down there to talk to the individual people, I don't know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I know that in terms of keeping a particular park on, say, the bike patrols or other kinds of patrols, it's largely dictated by the calls that are coming in and how much response is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
My neighbors and I live on, we're on Cottage Avenue, which is the western or the southern border of that park.
Mm-hmm.
And we've called more than 4 times in a single day. So I'm wondering how we make sure that those calls, and we're always mentioning Richmond Park, so I don't know what more we can do to make sure that those numbers are being tallied correctly, because that's way off base.
Yeah.
And like I had her, our person, I had him look at it, and I can't remember the exact way I had her, or I can't remember the exact way I asked her to look it up. And so I did want to go back, because she's like, there's only 4 calls, and I'm like, there's got to be more than that. I just haven't had a chance to follow up to make sure that everything's being accounted for. But anybody else? Yeah.
I'll just make a comment that we had a similar problem with Toffer Park about a year ago, and we discussed it here. And one of the things I started doing personally was calling dispatch in the morning on my way to work when I saw people camping in the park, and also in the evening time when I saw them camping in the park. And somebody would come by, and then they would remove them from the park, and it was pretty successful, actually. If you're rudely awoken, every morning, eventually you find another place to sleep. So I know that's not going to fix the city's problem, but it might fix up the park.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, just getting those calls, calling dispatch. I promise you, from working 9 years patrol, that you call in, an officer will respond on the call. Sometimes it might take a little bit, and that's probably one of the frustrating things I can think of, is especially when I would work morning, or when I come in on the day shift, you get graves that were finishing up their stuff, and then days would come in, and so sometimes, depending on where officers were at and what's going on, I might get on, but it's 6 o'clock, and so a lot of times the parks are now open. Now, there's still stuff like, as far as, they can be there, but as far as camping and meeting that element, there is still a violation where we could go and deal with it, but a lot of times I would get on and people would be there, and it's like, yeah, they're here, but so can everyone else. And so it's one of those ones, keep calling. Whenever I would get a dispatch call, I'm never going and saying, hey, this person right here is the one that called on you. I just say, we got a complaint from the neighborhood. So I let them know that we're getting complaints, they're there. If you'd like to speak with an officer, definitely tell dispatch, hey, I want to remain anonymous, but I would like an officer to contact me about this. If you call, like our non-emergency dispatch number is 799-3000, and then I think it's extension 7 to get to an operator where you can actually speak to somebody. If it's been a while and you haven't heard from anybody or you haven't seen anybody, don't hesitate to call back and say, hey, where am I in line? They might be able to tell you, oh, we got these many calls or this is what's going on. But it is definitely something you can, you yourself can definitely call and follow up with if you have any questions about that. Yeah.
What's the normal process to deal with campers? Because it's not just in Richmond Park, Sugar House Park, it's downtown, Rio Grande, and there's been a big discussion just last hour with Pioneer Park Coalition about the camping ordinances not being enforced. So what's the normal process for you as a police officer when you get that call and you have to go out and talk to a camper that's there past curfew? What do you do? Normal.
Depends on the situation, but a lot of times I know the bike squads specifically are going through, and if they're meeting the elements for the camping, definitely if there's a park curfew, that they are getting citations, and then they're told to clean up the stuff. And unfortunately, it's one of those things where it sounds like a lot of times we go through, and 15 minutes later they're back. So it is a definite issue. I know in patrol there was something like if I could try to do a rotation. If I had to deal with something like that, I would try to come back and swing to make sure they just didn't move right back in after I left.
But there's really nothing you can do other than write them a citation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that specific offense, the camping or the curfew
No,
is
I'm not
a
complaining
citation.
about you.
Yeah.
It's just the system.
It's a citation. It's not something to go to jail for or anything like that.
Well, you can also stand there while they pack up and
Yeah,
leave.
you pack up,
Okay.
they leave. Yeah.
For me, it's not that people stand. I don't have a problem with somebody not having a home. I have a problem with mental illness and drug addiction on top of that. And if I need to be in the neighborhood because I live there, that proximity, just walking in my car can be dangerous, but it could be somebody behind the car, sneaking up on me, whatever. So what I'm really concerned about is the drug addiction and the profound mental illness that I've encountered. So I'm wondering if we can have it used to be a drug-free zone in the park.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why that stopped, why they took the signs down. Fines doubled for
I think
that
it's
sort of thing.
a lot of stuff. I mean, it was nice earlier today. My squad with the CIU, we actually met with the mayor, and that was one of the topics that was brought up is how do you stop this cycle? What do you do? As far as the drug-free zones, I mean, they're still there. There's, I want to say that with the last legislation when they were changing like some of the drug laws, I think it went from like 1,000 feet of a park, now it's down to like 500 feet of a park. So it's still there,
It's still
but
in the park though, so,
Yeah.
I mean, can you put up signs that say drug-free zone, fines double?
I mean, when I went and spoke with the Parks Department, I was just specifically asking about the curfew hours and that. That's something I can bring up with them. Say, hey, can you put this back up? Because I know a lot of signs have been taken down. I don't even remember if there's a no smoking sign there.
Yeah, because there's no smoking around
Mhm.
businesses, but in the public park, I mean, it's clearly crack smoking is okay.
Yeah, and it's a huge issue, and a lot of stuff too is with the last legislation with drug possession. It went from a felony 3 down to a Class A.
Right.
And so it lowered the offense, but yeah, it's absolutely rampant.
I've noticed it's not just a homeless problem, it's not just a drug problem, it's not just a mental illness problem, it's a combination of all three. People, if they could continue to accept help, they probably would, but they need to wander off somewhere and feed their addiction.
Mhm.
For mental reasons, they can't stay in one place or they can't stay indoors for a period of time.
Yeah.
So, I've actually had arguments with mentally ill in front of my house over a shovel. It's my shovel.
Yeah.
I want to keep my shovel. And so it's a combination of the three, and I don't think that you can actually separate them. So, but
It's definitely something I'd love to know is to figure out what to do to break that cycle because it's evil.
right.
But just sometimes it's people, they have to get to the lowest spot before they're willing to make a change. Some people just don't want to. So I don't know what it would take to get somebody, but it would be nice to figure out how to break that cycle, because it just grabs people and just tears them apart.
So just so you all know, we talking about the broader issue of homelessness. We do have Elizabeth Buehler with the city here. She's the homeless services coordinator, and she can answer some questions. She's going to share the time with Mayor Biskupski because we knew that homelessness would be a lot of the things that people would want to talk about. So in terms of the broader questions, those two people to answer your questions. So,
yes.
King, for those of you who don't know, I'm Dale Keller, and I'm road director with the health department. This Richmond encampment problem, is this something that we could do the post and clean up process that we've done many times with your office? Is it that?
As far as the,
that type of response?
you mean as far as like the abandoned property and all that?
Yeah, the Richmond part, just the encampment. I don't know how.
From what I've seen and from some of the people I've talked with, I don't know if it's exactly abandoned property being left there. It's more of people camping and then defecating and urinating and leaving drug paraphernalia. And so I guess that's my biggest concern. And I mean, I completely understand your frustration. I hate if someone was on the backside of my fence leaving that mess. But it's, I guess, finding some kind of a resource so that, I mean,
I feel like that park in particular is really dark.
uh-huh.
And it's also because all the toys are like, all the playground equipment is way in the back corner. I mean, it's kind of a poorly designed, great for people in camping. And you don't really even see them, because I live in the neighborhood, so a lot of hot nights, you know, me and my kids would try to go out 8:30, 9 o'clock. You don't see people camping until you're right directly on them, you know, and you have to tell your kids, don't run up, you know, I don't know who these people are yet, and I don't know how many people are camping at this park, nor what you're going to step on.
And there's a lot of different hidden corners
So,
in there.
I wonder if, you know, part of the problem is not a lighting and just design problem, where the design of the park is such that you have a lot of opportunity for people to camp and not be noticed, unless it's by those few neighbors that live right there who have to be vigilant all the time about who's camping there.
It's definitely something I can
But
bring up with the.
I don't know.
The last time I talked with the Parks Department, I mean, I know that they were scratching their head about some of the parks, and I told them about that one, and it's definitely something I can go back and I can talk with them and see if there's some way they can redesign it.
But yeah, it's money. So.
Yeah, it's a.
Or just having, like, you know, lights that come on if people are active in the park, and so that you can see people.
If you could maybe find out who we could contact in the Parks Department to kind of lobby for increased lighting, that would be helpful.
Okay. So, any other questions? So, I mean, I know that I know there's a problem with the city, or with this issue going across, and it is something we are definitely working on. Like I said, I've gone a couple times before. I normally get in to try to go through the park, and some of the other parks, some of the other officers have come in trying to hit them up and just trying to make sure that we're not having this continual issue. But it's one we're having citywide.
Well, who's supposed to clean it up?
That's one of the things I'm not exactly sure. I know downtown that they have specific people, and that's something that if we got that issue, I definitely would be calling around trying to figure out how the best way is to go about doing that.
There, at least this summer, there has been a very regular schedule to how these encampments have shown up. And it's been Thursdays when they start setting up for the concerts in Pioneer Park. They all show up in the other parks.
Okay.
And they stay until Sunday morning, until the farmer's market ends. I don't know if that cycle, that's on the radar of the police at all, or the other resources, but those 3 days, that's when this is the vast majority of this is happening. And they're all getting chased out of Pioneer Park for those 3 days, and so they're scattering to other places in the city. And those are the days that we're not, we see patrols the other days of the week. But those 3 days, we're not seeing patrols coming through, bike patrol or otherwise. And that's really when it's critical, frankly, is this schedule that the city is running on with these other events. I don't know if there's a way to address that.
That's a good way to look at it, because it's been a while since I've worked a weekend, and I didn't even think about that. I mean, I guess I should have with seeing about that, but that is a good point to bring up.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Detective. All right, so just so it works with everyone's schedules, we're actually ahead of schedule. I'd like to shuffle things a little bit and have the mayor come and speak now, if you'd like to, and Elizabeth, if you'd like to join, or if you just want to answer questions from there.
Come on up.
And then just to remind you again, this is our pilot broadcast on Facebook Live, so if you have questions, please speak up so the microphone can pick you up. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming tonight and for being involved. It's very important that people are engaged in city government and the issues that we are all trying to manage and deal with. We're in this together, and the information you share with us does not go ignored. Do we always have an immediate solution? We don't. But we certainly are doing our due diligence in trying to figure out a better path forward. And so please continue to stay involved. I don't want to spend all of my time just talking to you. I want to make sure that we're engaged in a conversation. But I do want to share some things with you. Some of the concerns that have been raised today around mental health care and issues with that and how it is driving bigger factors is very real. And until we start to treat mental health care just like we do all other medical care, we will always have the issues we have today. And I'm a huge advocate for parity in mental health care is in our medical system and in our insurance coverage. I don't control that though, and I certainly advocate for it, but I don't control it, and I know Rebecca, who's here from the legislature, is an advocate as well. But it is important that we pursue that, because without it, you will continue to see the path that you are seeing for many, many people. The other element to this whole drug issue that's been raised is not just the self-medicating that mentally ill people do because they feel like they have no other choices, but it's also the drugs that are being prescribed by medical doctors and not enough questions being asked by the people that are getting those prescriptions, and also too many drugs being prescribed all at one time, and again, not enough information being shared about the addictive nature of these pills. So we are working on that. We are working on a path to inform people, to inform families, to make sure people understand what to look for in a family member or a friend who might be heading down that path of addiction. We want to try to get the users to decrease. You absolutely have to go after the user population as much as you do the criminal aspect of this. Let's decrease even the desire to purchase. Let's decrease the number of people using. I think that is an important element, not just the arrest piece. And we are working on all fronts on the addiction issue. I know that the work that is going on with the homeless and the county has continued to move forward in a very progressive fashion. We are making great strides with our subcommittees and the teams of people who are working on this issue to really create a different service model, to make sure that we are breaking ground next year on a new resource center in Salt Lake City, that we are decreasing population numbers at the road home as we move people into a different service model based on their own assessments that we are doing for those individuals. So this model is really evolving in a way that is very exciting, because at the very beginning of this, there was dialogue around, no matter what, the shelter needs to be by the 4th Street Clinic. because they've got to have medical care. Well, 4th Street Clinic heard that and said, well, that's not necessarily true. We can figure out a different service model and participate in change. And today they showed up with an entirely new service model that is extremely exciting and accommodating, not just to 2 resource centers that we may build in Salt Lake City, but to multiple entities that are doing service for individuals. So whether you're in a bigger facility or a smaller one, they will have a mobile unit that will be able to come and assist. They have a nurse management team that they are creating, and those individuals will be on site. And not just once in a while. In these bigger facilities, they would be there 5 days a week, providing medical assistance and treatment and care, and referring individuals, if need be, to a higher level of care. So everyone is taking a different approach. Our resource center services will be very different. When we went to the legislature and asked for money for resource centers, we asked for money for services as well, because we will be doing intensive case management, really helping people get back to independence and working through the issues that they are showing up with, making sure that we are assessing their needs quickly, trying to get families into housing sooner than later. What was the percentage today of families? 35?
35% of new families.
New families today are being diverted into housing right now. So they are not having to stay at shelter. And with that opportunity comes a real need for the housing piece of this. And so every dollar that we put into creating multiple shelters is dollars that will not go toward housing. And the housing piece of this is critical. We can't just bring people into shelter and help them and then say, well, good luck finding a place you can afford to live in. That won't work either. And so the housing component of this is very much at the forefront. We already have projects underway to create that housing stock, not just in Salt Lake City, but throughout the county. And I think Elizabeth can talk to a few other aspects of this. But go ahead, do you want to?
And I really appreciate the mayor sharing her time and Michael allowing me to speak, though I wasn't on the agenda. I probably will be on maternity leave at your next meeting, and considering all the issues you're having in your neighborhood, we really wanted to talk to you about what we're doing about citing the 2 new resource centers. So as the mayor said, we are still in the process of citing these resource centers. Some of you participated in our June workshops where we really defined our site criteria on areas we want to look at for these potential sites, also looking at the needs. So we know in these resource centers what services need to be really included. Again, we're not looking at replicating the Road Home's current Rio Grande facility. We know that part of the reason people are camping out is because they don't want to go to an 800-bed facility. The Road Home does a great job with what they've been doing. They've done it for 30 years, but that's just not how best practices anymore in providing these emergency services and getting people into housing as quickly as possible. So since those June workshops, what we've first done, what we have done is first we've looked at areas of the city that match that criteria. We also looked at other factors that would limit the placement of resource centers, things like environmental regulations for future funding. There are also certain legal aspects we had to follow, things like that. And what we've now done is internally we've started to identify potential sites that met that site criteria as well as these other criteria like the environmental regulations. And now we're doing the internal technical review. So we're looking at planning issues, we're looking at, say, public utility issues, things like that. So we don't want to present anything to the public that would eventually become undevelopable. So while we're developing these internal reviews, we're taking it to the mayor and to the city council. And then later this month, starting in October, we'll take it out to the public for your review and your input on potential sites. We are on a very tight timeframe because thanks to the state legislature, we need to get results before the next session starts. So we're hoping by November to have sites. So you'll see some very intense public outreach in October. Things such as having exhibits at the public libraries for people to provide input there, a series of workshops at the main library and even in this space as well to get input, as well as online engagement. Wonderful thing in June is that we had over 600 responses to Open City Hall in our Facebook survey to the same workshops that people participated in June. So we're going to continue that. The first thing we're doing, though, as part of this public engagement, and while I talk about the road home and being there for 30 years, we actually have newer facilities in our very own community that are providing really great services right now and are doing best practices. So there are 4 new facilities that have been built in the past 10 years that we're offering tours of starting this week, going for the next 3 weeks, and we're asking all the public to join us. So, and we have wonderful flyers for you to have, just so you can explain it. The 4 facilities this week, tomorrow and Saturday, we are offering tours to the Lantern House in Ogden. That opened last year in August. It serves families, single women and single men. It's 300 beds. I know a lot of people who've had a chance to visit it. They think that's something that we could incorporate here in Salt Lake City. So the tours are tomorrow from 1 to 5, and then Saturday 1 to 5 as well. There is a website. It's on slcmayor.com/homeless services, and you can sign up there. Or you can call me directly, and we will put you on the RSVP list. We still have spots for both of those. If Ogden is too far for you, which I understand that is a commitment, next week we are doing tours to the YWCA. They provide service to domestic violence victims, and we're also visiting the new VOA Youth Resource Center that opened at 9th South and 4th West just this past May. So that's next week, again, Thursday and Saturday. And then finally, in 2 weeks, we're offering tours to the Midvale Family Shelter. That is the Road Homes shelter. It's right off 72nd South and I-15 in Midvale, and that was rebuilt just in the past year, and it's now open year-round. That's a designated year-round facility. Now, families, that's the first option for homeless families in our community, and it's only when that facility is filled that families are then diverted to the Rio Grande facility. So again, we encourage everyone to come see these tours, because again, that's when we're looking at resource centers, new resource centers in Salt Lake, we're not considering rebuilding the Road Homes Rio Grande facility. What we're really doing is trying to replicate these best practices and look at the models that have been built recently. So we encourage everyone to sign up. And I appreciate your time. Are there any questions?
I really encourage you to do one of the tours so you can have a different visual of what a resource center could look like and how it would function and how it would provide care in a much different fashion than what you see today at the Road Home.
Yes, you mentioned that you're not ready to share at this point any of these resource centers that you've selected, but I'm curious if there are any on the list that are in Central City.
They are, let me say, they are throughout Salt Lake City.
Yeah, they're everywhere right now.
Okay.
And that list is being whittled down. I haven't seen a final list, just so you know, neither has the council. But we have been told that they are everywhere in the city, and so they are doing the work they need to do to work through some of the dynamics that she talked about to make sure that all sites that are potential sites are really sites that we could actually build on.
And do you expect to have sites outside of the city in the rest of the county?
Right now, for these resource centers, we are looking in Salt Lake City specifically, but there are other facilities planned as under the Salt Lake County Collective Impact, such as a behavioral health and substance abuse treatment. Also other housing projects, especially for single women with children. So there are other projects, but these resource centers, because Salt Lake City is leading it, are within Salt Lake City.
Yes. We are looking for beds for 1,000 people, and Salt Lake City committed to 500 in these 2 resource centers or multiple resource centers. And the other beds are coming in a very different fashion in smaller numbers to provide service for very distinct populations.
Yeah, so you mentioned that throughout the city, that includes east side and west side.
Yes.
And then follow, you said that October there'll be a public review, and the decision will be made by November. Who ultimately makes it? Is that the city council will vote on it to make the final decision? And is that too short of a period for a public review? Or October to November seems like.
Well, the public has been very engaged in helping us develop criteria for even picking sites. And so that criteria is going to be heavily incorporated into any decisions being made about where to land. Is it going to be hard for us as a community to say it's okay here or here? It probably will be, but our alternative is the road home situation today. So we have to have the courage to accept kind of our realities of today in order for us to make hard choices and change those dynamics for a better tomorrow. And that is just our reality.
So we've got about 10 minutes left. Time for a couple more questions. And of course, you're welcome to ask any other topic if you're interested.
Yes, sure.
It seems as if there's been a lot of discussion about how politics on a state level are in some ways depriving the city of resources that it needs coming from federal level to address some of these mental health issues and some of these other issues. Is that your perception? And if so, what committees or what lawmakers do we need to be putting pressure on to address that situation?
I will say to you, and I will look in the camera, Medicaid expansion is critical. It needs to happen. It just does. And until it does, we are really limping along, right? People truly need help, and that is the way to get it for many of these individuals, at least up front. You know, there's high hopes that the new service model will help people get employment, and with that comes insurance and opportunity to make sure that you are on stable ground. But until we change that dynamic a bit, we are grasping for every dollar from every angle possible. And so really lobby every legislator on Capitol Hill. Any other questions on anything? Anything? Well, again, go ahead.
Jackie, this is kind of a broad question, not focused on homelessness,
Sure.
but it's related because what I see happening in my role as a landlord is as the cost of housing goes up, specifically these newer, very high-priced units, everything is getting shoved down in terms of the availability of housing. So the units that used to be available for people who had a modest income are simply not available anymore. Do you see incentives, or can your team work on incentives to maintain the affordability of some of the older housing that we have that is, when purchased by investors, getting moved into price range that is no longer affordable?
Right. You know, we are working on this issue from multiple angles. Even the state knows that they have to show up at some level and help with the housing stock. The crisis you are referring to is not just in Salt Lake, it's all over the state. And so what we are doing internally is at every opportunity we have to take a market rate housing unit that a developer wants to build and get them to commit to a low-income housing unit, we are putting money towards that so it pencils out for them as a developer. And then many times that commitment is like a 50-year commitment for that housing unit. So the investment on our end seems very logical, and we are doing that with as many opportunities that come online as possible. We can't force it on a developer in many instances, but we are really working with them to make sure that at every opportunity we have, that we do that. We are also doing some very unique things in using some dollars to create units in a way that allows for us as a city to make sure we are bringing in management for those units. So by having the right people manage those units as well, then we know that they will remain in the pool for the right people, for the right reasons. And so there's a couple angles that we are working on this. And do you have any other thoughts you want to share on that? Okay. So, you know, the county is also working on this, and then we are also reaching out to private individuals to just be investors in low-income housing units. And that will help us. If we can really seal the deal with some of these private individuals and organizations, I think that will be extremely helpful to increasing the pool of low-income housing units. Your idea is not one that I have processed through, but we'll take that back with us, and I'll talk to our team about that.
And I'm happy to be available to talk about zoning
Sure.
at any time, but the very aggressive zones that are in front of the city are costing us affordable housing. That's what's going down. Is the more affordable units.
I know.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yes, Mayor, thank you for being here. I'm
Yes.
Scott Clark. I'm a local minister in this area. And just a question about, again, dealing with the homeless situation kind of right now. We at times at our church have homeless people come, and because it's kind of a safe haven when you buy a church.
Sure.
And you know, we have to kind of run away. It's not too bad, but when it's there, when we're moving them away, getting them away, what is a place? I know we have the road home and different things, and we're here in downtown Salt Lake. What's the best way that we can handle them as far as maybe resources? Saying not just get away, but have you tried this? Even though it's around them, they may not have an idea that it's there because they're experiencing depression, they're experiencing, you know what, we had just got kicked out 2 months ago, I'm going from place to place, and so their mind is not mentally there, even though they're mentally aware. So as a community and even the church, what are some things that we could put into their hands like now to help them get to where we need to be in the future?
You know, we have a resource list, and we can share that with you.
It's also, there's a list on slchost.org, so it's slchost.org, and then it's a partnership with the City and Downtown Alliance. On the website, it lists all the resources. There's also the Community Connection Center. It was mentioned earlier about the city social workers, but it's actually a drop-in center right on 5th West and 2nd South. It has both the city host officers as well as the social workers, and they're connected to all the service providers in the area. So you can always send them there. And you know, as we mentioned, you already know about the providers. If they're struggling with behavioral health, Valley Storefront, that's operated by Valley Behavioral Health, they operate right on 7th South between 5th and 6th West, right across from Frida's Bistro. They do a drop-in center, and Wiegand Center at Catholic Community Services. They also offer a day center, and sometimes people are more willing to go in there than to go into the road home across the street.
So what was that, Valley?
It's called Valley Storefront, and it's right on 7th South, between 5th and 6th West.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. One last question.
Has the city considered doing, or have they already done this? Are we doing this now? Some type of things where there are signs so people can see these resources? I mean, like, it's very common where, like, I see the same family on the side of the road in the same neighborhood, and maybe if they were just walking past a sign every day that said, walk 2 more blocks and we've got a cop for you, or walk 2 more blocks and maybe we can fix this. Have we ever done something like that?
We haven't done signs, but we have cards, and I can show you one. There are host cards, and on those cards, it tells people where they can reach out for assistance. And I've been asking the community to hand those out rather than money, because when you give people money, you don't really know what that is being spent on. Whereas if you give them this card, they can get help and food and shelter.
Where can we get those?
You know, on slchost.org, there's a contact number. It's for Camille Winnie with the Downtown Alliance, and she has stacks of these that she is happy to hand out. So if you just contact her.
Great.
Yes.
And I'm happy to bring some for the next one to have them as you guys need them, so I'm happy.
Just please hand those out. They're very helpful.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
having
Thanks again.
All right, we have, it's an exciting meeting today. So we've got Google Fiber here. If you guys want to come on up.
I'm going to let Scott sit in the back. It's good to see you guys.
And I'll let you know, one thing we want to hear is, some pricing.
Pricing, we got it.
Okay.
Perfect.
Go on.
We're excited to be here, honestly. 2 weeks ago, we got to announce that service is open to Salt Lake City. And you guys are one of the neighborhoods that it's open to. So we will definitely talk about pricing in here. We can also talk about opportunities and options on how to sign up. And we can talk about what type of construction still is existing in your neighborhood, which is important. So for those that are interested in later on, you can actually see some fiber here. This is a 1x12 strand, meaning that there are actually 12 strands of fiber glass coming out of this blue wire. This strand normally holds 6 1x12s, so that's 72. We can get up to 864 in one of our larger conduit carriers. Coming to your house, though, is going to be off of a telephone pole or underground, a fiber line that connects to an NIU on your property if you're a single-family unit. If you're an apartment complex and your apartment has signed an access agreement through the property owner, then it would have a separate way of hooking up, which is a different process. Getting to apartments, you can get online. We actually, on our website, have apartment finder, so you can see which apartments in your neighborhood or where you're looking to move already has an access agreement with Google Fiber and is eligible post-construction installation, ready to receive fiber. So that's great news. Central City, your neighborhood obviously has a lot of apartment complexes. We are calling our area of service right now that is open City Center, and that is from approximately 1300 East to 400 West, South Temple to 800 South. And I'm using coordinates to try to make a rectangle as much as possible, but knowing that there are some side streets and some cutouts and end cuts that happen as a result of construction. We are building to the entire Salt Lake City metropolitan area where it is feasible and possible. And so obviously we have high cost issues. We also have geological or environmental issues that prohibit us from bringing fiber in a reasonable fashion to the customer or just reasonably. Our service right now is for residential and small business. Some people don't know that we actually have a small and medium business line that I can also give you pricing for. We, in addition, have brought in a phone package for residential. So if you live in a single-family unit or in a multi-dwelling unit, we have an additional phone at $10 that can be signed up for, and that's a voice over IP, so a digital phone, which is a great resource. I brought my friend, Scott, do you want to stand up for a second? Blue shirt means he probably more than likely and definitely does work at Fiberspace. And so he can give you a in-house sales experience right after I'm done talking, because you really want to listen to me, right? You don't want to go over there right now and sign up for fiber. But let's give you 3 options on how you can sign up for fiber if you're interested. First and foremost, you want to check your address. You can do that by going online or calling our customer service, which is 866-777-7550. And they can check your address. And that will allow you to see if your unit or home is eligible for fiber installation right now. On top of that, you can go to our fiber space, which is in historic Trolley Square on the east side next to Lululemon and Whole Foods would be on that side. And so we've taken up a space there. It's a beautiful space for you to come test drive a gigabit of service. Some people really can't conceptualize how fast a gig of service is until you've had an opportunity to see it in comparison to our standard or national average rates of megabits per service per second, which is roughly 15 megabits per second. And so we're talking about 1,000 megabits per second, up to 1,000 megabits per second, and that's wired. And it's vastly different. You can upload your entire family's photo albums in seconds and download an HD movie in mere minutes. And so we have 3 residential products. We have Fiber 1000, which again, the 1000 stands for megabits per second. Fiber 1000 is retailing right now for city center residents at $70 a month. We have Fiber 1000 plus television. Our television is high definition television that operates over our internet, and that is $140. And there are over 200 channels. It's a great package. We also have Fiber 100, 100 being 100 megabits per second. Fiber 100 retails for $50. All of those, the Impact Manager, I'm not a salesperson, so if I haven't sold you, I take responsibility for that.
Can I
right?
just say, ironically, we just briefly lost internet connection on our Facebook Live broadcast.
Were you on public Wi-Fi?
We're on the cities.
You timed out.
That's right.
So residentially, again, Fiber 1000 is a $70 product. Fiber 1000 plus TV is $140. Fiber 100 is $50. Add phone to any of those packages for $10. And these price and plans are available currently for City Center, Salt Lake City. Our small business packages are a Fiber 1000 for $250, our Fiber 250, so that's 250 megabits per second for $100, and Fiber 100, 100 megabits for $70. And then you get your support with that. So my job in community impact.
The 1,000 is for $70 and the 100 is for $50? Wow. How's that?
Residential, yes. Sorry, you threw me for a loop there.
1,000 gigabytes or 1,000?
1,000 megabytes per second or 1 gig
for $70
for $70 as a residential hookup.
And then 100 for
$50 as a residential hookup.
But the middle one is like for one.
So the middle is for small business opportunities only. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I may have confused there, but that's a small business plan opportunity only. For those that have actually seen these are our door hangers that we've put on homes when we've been building all of the backbone, all of the deeper construction, doing potholes and ripping up streets and sidewalks in order to work with the city, in fact, to try to do a dig once if we can, installation of fiber lines. And that's our ideal way of doing it. In fact, kudos and credit goes to Salt Lake City government and to local leaders in the community that have made our build process and progress extremely fast and with a least amount of interruption that you could imagine if you had to come back through Salt Lake City and redo the entire waterworks of the city. Because that's how complicated laying fiber organically is. We are literally laying and hanging fiber for the first time throughout these neighborhoods. That's a big endeavor. And so for us to be here today, earlier than our 2-year anniversary, in fact, and say that we can serve the city center area is a huge accomplishment and credit to Salt Lake City government, its employees, the engineering, the permits department, and local leaders for helping us organize this community to get that done. So these go onto doors. Typically, we try within 3 days of construction. The construction that's changed here for the city center or the central city area would be that we're now doing the hookups. So now we've moved from the streets and the sidewalks, our main arterial installations, to customers who need to have hookups, which means that if there's a power pole nearby, we would have to notify residents and others that we're going to come by and we're going to hook up your neighbor, and if you want to know more about fiber, here's an opportunity. And so we still have construction to do, obviously, in order to make that happen. One point to note is that for our single-family units, we do have a window of opportunity to sign up for fiber service right now. And so for the city center area, that window is until October 20th to sign up. And that is to allow us to scale out our installers and our sales to accommodate for the best experience to the customers and to decrease our wait times. So we will scale out through the city as we are able to post construction and with our ability of opening these windows for neighborhoods to sign up. And then if you live in an apartment complex, you're always available to sign up. That is the gist. I wanted to take the least amount of time because we had a really heavy topic tonight, and I want to be considerate of that and your time. And I also wanted to give you guys more time to spend with Scott and do some signups. Yes, sir.
For those of us who have already signed up, are we going to get installation at the end of the window, or could it be any time that installation
So
happens?
you should be getting an email post your sign up, and that will create an opportunity for you to schedule your installation so that we can meet you upon that scheduled moment and install you. And that should happen as soon as possible. If you've got in early, it will happen sooner rather than later, more than likely prior to that rally close date.
So you are doing installations now?
There are installations happening as we speak, in fact.
Great.
Literally, in your neighborhoods. He beat you.
I have heard some concerns about how the poles look when you guys are done with them. Is there something to, just messy with lots of wires? I've seen lots of pictures on Facebook of people concerned about the installation.
Great. So part of my job, community impact, is I work on digital inclusion for Google Fiber to help bring everybody online as possible, whether that be broadband to the home or working with our nonprofits and our community services and create more access points for all families. The other part of my job is to work on issues like this so that we can be good stewards, right? Good community partners and neighbors. And again, laying a brand new network of fiber throughout the city, whether you're hanging or trenching, is an extremely critical process that requires a lot of people to get their ducks in a row at the same time. This involves your utility partners, the city, its engineering, its permit, and its inspectors, and then any other utility or telecom who's working on that pole as well. And so it is hard to, frankly, determine who is working when, unless you're probably the city and you have the permit and you get to go out and do the inspection. And so typically has been without those incidents, but if they do happen, and they have happened, we do want to give you a number that I'm going to save you, because normally I record player this number probably 4 times in one night, but I'm going to say it nice and slow, and we'll all write it down and we'll be solved, right? So this number is 877-454-6959. If you call that number, that is our construction escalation number that goes directly to one of our representatives out of Austin, Texas, and is available 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That number will identify you and your issue based on what your concern is, and will get routed to our crews here immediately, and we can then start to address that issue here locally. Issues can be anything from remediation on sod or pole issues. To get specifically back to your question, Michael, we work with the city on our permit, and we file those permits like anybody else does, and then we get inspected on our work, not just by the city, but then by the pole owners. And that's a utility company, and they also are not in the business of enjoying loose wires and a poor job. And so they would call us out and tell us to fix our work. And so we have residents, pole owners, and city inspectors to help ensure that we give that the due diligence that it deserves. Yes, sir, you had a question.
Simple question. You say the boundaries are South Temple to 8 South.
Yes, approximately.
Does it include 8 South? I live on the south side of 8 South.
So it's so you're trying. That's not a simple question. It's not a simple question. So if you actually go to our website, and there is a map that shows where we have defined city center, and there are portions of 8th South on the south side that are not currently eligible, and there are portions more east that are eligible. But fret not. We will get to you.
What's the website?
It's our, the easiest way for me to tell you, because it's a long website and I apologize for this, is Google Salt Lake City Fiber, and it will pop right up, but I can give it to you if you want it right now. It's going to be google.com/fiber/Salt Lake City.
Okay.
And then we do that for every city. I think you were next.
Yes, how long is the guarantee going to be on that work? So if I come back next spring and I see my sod has died as a result of a dig, will you come back and fix it then, or is it too late?
So we're talking about a guarantee on a living thing, which requires that the homeowner or whoever is in control of the water, there are a lot of variables here, and so we will work our hardest to bring that condition back to the way we met it originally. But if there are other extenuating circumstances that we did not catch upon first review, or the city inspector did not sign off on that work, then we will go back and rectify that. But if we've received city inspection sign off and the customer has acknowledged that the work is back to the way it was, our job has been fulfilled.
So we've got about 5 minutes left.
There's a question here.
I have a question about these pole owners. I didn't realize there were owners of poles.
Oh, yeah.
Is there a way to contact them? Like for me personally, on my pole, which has like 6 or 7 things going through my backyard, I'd love to get rid of, the phone line. I'd like to get rid of the cable line. I feel like those lines are antiques, like it's like you having a telegraph machine in the house, which I've never used. And I've actually, even in my house, I have an old house. Every time I do a room, I literally patch the area and it is closed off. You cannot use a phone now in my house, but I still have this wire. So can I contact the pole owner? Or am I allowed to just snip it and
Clearly, I
let it
cannot
go?
speak to anything that is out of my purview, right? That's a liability issue, but I will give you a recommendation.
Okay.
There's a gentleman in the back, David, who can help you understand that each pole is identified and mapped in the city's network, both by the city and by the utility that owns it. There's a number on that pole that you can then help identify the owner of that pole, and I'm sure David would be more than happy to assist with that situation.
All right, yeah.
See how I volunteered a city employee?
So many wires, and they're
Jennifer, you're next. Any other questions? Sincerely, we are excited to be here.
I have a single family rental that I would like to put, or at least connect fiber to. So whether there's a renter in there or not, that will be the basic service. I heard Cincinnati, I believe, or Kansas City had a program where the landlord could pay the install, and then there would be a minimum for 7 years or something.
So I will actually direct that unique special question to Scott. We can take your information down, and some of the terms and conditions may have changed since the Kansas City models, and so I want to make sure you get proper care and attention. But we will assist you in getting your property fiber ready, absolutely, because your next tenant will probably say, I want to live there because of fiber.
Right.
Great choice.
Also, another thing is the problem with the wire, hanging wires and poles. That's been happening for a month or two before you guys showed up. Also, your competitors, you showed up at my house an hour and a half ago, wanted to press the flesh, wanted to make a personal appearance and ask me how my service was, and it's no coincidence, it's just an hour and a half ago.
Did I fail to mention that we actually have very transparent pricing, and that we have no data caps, and that our speed is contiguous up and down, and so you get the full enjoyment of that internet experience. Thank you for highlighting
Just one more question,
Yes.
and then we're done.
It's really the most important question of all Google
He
questions.
said he had a simple question, and it's actually a difficult question.
Mine's
So
the most important though, and that is Utah Jazz games. Do we get Root Sports on your television service? And is there a contract? Are you guys gonna have it for a year, and then I'm gonna lose my Jazz games after a year? Because that is a big make or break for my
So
life.
another really important fact about Google Fiber here locally that I want you guys to know is that we hire local. So we have a lot of our team members out of our Provo, because we've been operating in Provo for 4 years, and now we've been operating here in Salt Lake for nearly 2 years. And so we have a lot of advocates of Jazz fans in the office. And I am pleased to tell you that as of September 1st, we have Root Sports as a part of our lineup, which means you do get your Jazz games anytime you turn on your television for a Jazz game. So,
For that
yes,
TV price.
for the Fiber 1000 plus TV at $140, you do get your Jazz games. That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, we had a clever Facebook ad that said Root Sports is now part of our lineup. So, any other questions? I will be in the back. Scott, yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just, before he sits down, I have hard copies of plans and pricing for people who are interested. And regardless if you're speaking to me or not, feel free to come grab one and take it home and look at it.
And I did neglect to actually give you the 3 ways of signing up. So obviously you can do it online, you can do it via the telephone, or you can go to Fiberspace. And so those are your 3 ways. And online means you can do it with your smartphone anywhere you are with a data connection. So again, thank you guys for letting us into your neighborhood. We're excited to be serving the city center area, or in your case, Central City.
Great.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. All right, so we've got Scott with Google Fiber in the back. He can help you get signed up. If you have questions about the engineering side, David is back there. And then if you have questions, follow-up questions from the homeless issues or something you didn't get a chance to ask the mayor, we have Jen and Hildy from the mayor's office in the back. So hopefully they can stick around for 5 to 10 minutes and keep answering questions. Other than that, I think we're done. So thanks for joining us, and thanks for joining us online. Take care.